right, guys, welcome to 3M Affairs podcast where three bros, some friends, get together and talk movies. Today we will talk about Death Becomes Her, the 1992 cult classic by Robert Zemeckis. Well, the jury is still out on the cult classic.
I don't know.
How are you guys doing?
Yeah, doing good. You know, in Toronto, second wave is whatever starting to pick up here. So things are a little, whatever. But things are good generally. Cannot complain. Moving out, so getting ready for that. Packing, bunch of shit. So
yay, adulting.
Well,
adulting.
I mean,
on Brandon's
it's not
side.
adulting. It's just
Are you
once again
moving? Are you moving like to like your own place by yourself?
Yeah,
or you, like, got roommates? What's
yeah.
going on?
I ended up getting a bachelor. So
That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
That's pretty sick.
yeah, it's
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's interesting thinking about it though, because I've only ever really moved into bachelors or like studio apartments. In Canada, we call them bachelors for some reason. I don't know why it's different.
Bachelor pad.
Yeah,
Because you guys are just way cooler than us.
I'm
Really? Somebody just dropped a
I don't know.
pipe outside.
I don't know if that got picked up on the mic, but yeah, somebody just dropped like a loud metal pipe outside.
like a construction pipe.
I don't know. It sounded like somebody was like moving like a. I don't know.
It's so
But
strange.
It was
So-
like Josh and I both looked at each other like, "What the fuck was that?"
How's the feel in New York right now? Is it like the third Batman?
No. I just like to go on record and say we're fine. There were some protests last night with everything,
No,
but like
Brandon, it's exactly like The Dark Knight Rises. You're right.
for anybody in my family who's curious,
A huge,
the city is not on fire.
bulky guy in a mask was walking around in a megaphone saying like, "Shit, I don't know. What does Bane say?"
You nearly grew up. I don't fucking know. Like,
Oh my god, no! Do your Bane impression,
Yeah, please do.
That was great. Come on, let's go around the horn. Everyone do Bane.
If Bane just showed up with a megaphone, and at the beginning of this, I would have been like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense."
Not like Tom Hardy, but like Bane,
Any
like the character.
any
like the
version,
6'6",
any version
like,
of Bane.
No, I'm saying like not
Popped up.
like an actor. Like Bane was real.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
like the the character was just like, oh, by the way, Batman exists.
Yeah.
2020. I wouldn't put it past. When was it? I feel like it was like within the past decade, or maybe it was a little longer. When like that dude dressed like there was a real Batman, like in it was like Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, maybe like somebody like was dressing up like Batman and beating the shit out of like people.
Oh.
Like, do you not remember this? Did I make this up? No,
No, it's definitely a real thing. I mean, there's lots of people out there that dress up as vigilantes and fight people, and I know that because as a kid, I looked it up all the time.
But I just feel like I remember it being in the news like semi recently.
Yeah.
Where like this guy.
I mean, there's another
was like-
dude who wears like a yellow suit. I can't remember what he called himself, but he was like an MMA fighter. And so there's all these videos of just like patrolling the streets, like outside of bars with drunk people, like getting into fights, and then just like leg kicking the fuck out of people.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yellow Man.
I mean, you're trying to help, but it's just turning into you just beating people up.
Well, I
He's a
find-
little confused, but he's got the spirit.
But I remember watching interviews with him. He was always seemed very, positive, like the ideas behind everything. So
Well, the way you described it, it seemed very
psychotic
irresponsible.
I know what I'm
Always
talking. That's
often
like
do.
one video, and there's like cops like
Okay.
right there, and like they're like cool with it.
Sure.
I don't want to deal with this shit.
No,
Yeah,
no,
go
no. Like
clean up the drunk
whatever.
people.
I can't remember what it was, but like whatever city they're in, you're allowed to do one-on-one combat if you both agree to it.
What, you mean like a
Really?
duel?
No, that's like
It's still
I'm
you
pretty
can still
sure
technically
that's like a law
challenge people
in
to duels.
a good amount of places. Like if you want to fight somebody and you both agree to fighting, like you're allowed to fight.
Like a consensual.
Is
Yeah.
this Canadian law or American law?
This was in the States for sure.
That seems more like an American thing.
I think
right?
that,
Yeah.
but I think that's how it is here. I don't know. I have no idea. But like, I mean, that makes.
If I challenge you to a duel and you accept, it's allowed.
well, no, I feel like well, maybe in the States, but you're definitely not allowed to use guns here, even if it's a duel. So
Well, yeah, but you guys don't have guns. You guys have like
we're not Britain.
you guys have like you guys have like muskets, right? Like the Mounties and like sabers.
I mean, that does sound pretty cool. So
I'll allow it. I'll let it slide.
Going on. No, we're good.
Well, hold on.
What?
I apologize. Before we get into anything, I have something to say. and I did not tell either of you that I was going to do this, but I've been upset for the past week. So when we record the episodes before we release them, we listen back to make sure everything's good for you guys. And something you said, Josh, made me upset, and I want to bring it up because we didn't have time because there was a lot going on last week, so I didn't have time to address it. But when I was ragging on Harry Potter, which I think should be totally fine, you were saying, you kind of clapped back with like, you watch anime. And I feel like that's not fair. So,
I just got very excited for this debate.
Listen to, let me get everything out because I'm not always the most articulate person, but this is my point of view. So when I was saying Harry Potter is for children, it like objectively is. It's an IP. It's a brand that is targeted for young adults, aka teenagers, aka children. So for you to be like, but you watch anime, so how can you're a hypocrite? Anime is not a genre. It is a medium of art. That's like saying, like all like music is one way or all stand-up is one way. Like it's just not, it's a huge umbrella that encompasses lots of different things. Just by like saying anime is like one thing for kids is like, there's a huge difference between like the Saturday morning cartoon stuff like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Digimon. And then like even from that to like Dragon Ball Z, but like from Dragon Ball to like Hayao Miyazaki and Satoshi Kon and like all of these like auteurs that like use the medium to tackle different kinds of stories. Like, and it's definitely not all for children. Like Tetsuro Araki, who directed Death Note and Attack on Titan, is one of the most cinematic directors like alive. The way that he can create exciting visceral moments out of the simplest mundane actions, I think, is like you can't do that in live action almost. Like it's its own art form. Brandon and I both watch Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is like one of the greatest pieces and deep dives into a creator's psychology and like an examination on the effects of isolation and depression, like that just hasn't been matched in my opinion. So it just was like, I think that people just have like a limited understanding of what like quote like anime is. And I just feel like that wasn't fair. And I wanted to defend it because I'm a huge weeb. And that's just all I have to say.
Oh, well, I apologize that I offended your delicate ego. I'm just, for our listeners, we're like the best of friends. This is fine. No, I totally get it. And I did come across, because I got a little bit of like, yes, Harry Potter is objectively a teen fantasy kind of section. You'd find that in that section of book and nowhere else, right? And I get it. Anime for me, because of my limited experience with it, is just essentially it's cartoons, right? And so when I think anime, I think animation, stuff like that. I think something geared towards. But there are a lot of adult themes, a lot of movies that they do tackle, and you're totally right. So I'm not. Yeah.
And also, I'm sorry. To be clear, I'm not actually upset. Like the whole preamble was me.
Yeah, he just wanted to talk about
raising his eyebrows.
Yeah,
but it was like I was listening to it and I was like, oh, you know what? I actually have something I want to say about this that we didn't get.
Well, it's funny because I do like and we talk about this as I literally sit here playing Pokemon for the last like 2 months on the Game Boy. So it's like there's different levels of these type of things, but it's like I feel like. Yeah, I mean, everybody has, their own thing. And yes, when I sometimes, I think part of that was coming from, Caleb, you have a tendency to kind of be very adamant on opinions and things like that.
Yeah, that's right.
And be very like things that you may criticize people for, somebody's on the other side of the aisle could interpret how you're talking about certain subjects as the same way that you criticize people for talking about certain things.
Okay.
So there's it's fluid. It's whatever, it's all depends on the lens you see through.
I'm actually surprised though that you haven't gotten into some of those, especially some of the ones he mentioned yet, because a lot of them are so up your alley in every way. Because the directing in some of these shows becomes crazy on purpose, but just the story and the tone of all of them are especially the ones he was talking about, are so in your alley for sure, man. Like, and even though some of the lighter ones that are, excuse me, like Hunter x Hunter, you would love. My Hero Academia, you would love. There's a bunch. I'm surprised that you haven't done a deep dive yet. Try to get you into that.
I'm also dating somebody who also loves anime as well. So like I'm sure there'll be a moment where
I already corrupted Brandon, so it's here just a matter
I will
of
get
time.
it. I just I think for me, because I've been going through this, because I like the self judgment, right? So where I grew up, like very quickly I learned to like hide the Game Boy, or like don't talk about Pokemon or talk about the kid stuff, air quotes, kid stuff.
Mm-hmm.
At school, because it's not cool or whatever. I was on the football team, you know, like that kind of culture, right? And so like I did watch Dragon Ball Z. I loved that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like I pretended to be I had fantasies of, you know, a Saiyan ship crashing down to like Earth so that I could like absorb powers and be a Saiyan.
Dude. We all
and it's
did.
like but that went away. It went away because, you know, as I went to college or whatever, I just, you know, that wasn't what in my mind or how I saw it.
Mhm.
It wasn't cool, or it wasn't like that was it. And then now that I'm kind of really getting back into the Pokemon handheld games, I'm sitting here going, why am I judging myself? Because what I realized is that our generation, growing up like in the, like, you know, born 88, 89, 90, whatever, and like Pokemon came out in 95, 96, I think, in the US and stuff like that. And so like just now those kids are now turning 30 or late 20s, early 30s. Like, and it's the same reason why you still have some of those people that love Dungeons and Dragons and like from this 80s, you know what I mean? Like,
Dungeons and Dragons,
it's okay to love.
They're having a huge resurfacing, like exactly like right now.
Well, yeah, Caleb and I we did watch the Community episode before this, and realizing that like I probably should take a stab at playing Dungeons and Dragons, because it is role playing, it is acting, it is.
I want to play. I want to play.
We'll get an ASDS campaign
I'm
going.
so down. Amazing, dude.
But it's also, I've been sitting not judging myself as kind of the idea, and the reason I'm not into anime, I don't think, is because I haven't, I guess, rediscovered it. I'm also kind of behind since I just finished Lord of the Rings, which, by the way, tell me why the last like 3 chapters, or last 2, like the goodbyes and that little last random like conflict between like the men and the hobbits, why that felt longer than the entire Lord of the Rings like adventure, like to Mordor and back. I felt like when I got to those chapters after the ring was destroyed, I was like, okay, cool. Now it's just going to like kind of wind down or whatever. But then there's like another 100 pages of them saying goodbye to everybody, because you have to cross off all the plot, you know, conclude everything. And then they get to the Shire, and all of a sudden they have to fight more people. And I'm sitting here going, come on, Mr. Tolkien, I need to just end.
It's magic.
It's magic, yeah.
No,
but it's just funny because it
the
did kind of
Shire's
feel
destroyed. Right, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Right.
No, because then that little box of dirt that Sam got made it all beautiful, and there's a huge tree in the center of town.
But hold on, Josh. I want to jump back to something you were saying before, because we're the same age, right? We're both 91s. And it's so interesting.
I'm 90. Thank you. That's offensive.
But we're the same. We're the same age, you know. So it's so interesting though, because there was a point when we were in high school when that took a turn. Or at least it did, like in Toronto, but it felt like culturally we're like the kind of the nerd guy became cooler, you know? Because there was definitely a point in high school where I obviously am super fucking nerdy. Like, I love anime, I love cartoons, comic books. I'm a massive superhero nerd. And I was always pretty like upfront about that because, you know, whatever. But there would seem like a point with TV and movies and stuff where that, I remember that becoming a positive instead of a negative. You know what I mean?
I think it depends on where you grew up too. Because like for me, I was like Midwest and like it like, you know, I also my senior year I was outed, and so I was dealing with that bullshit, and I kind of just closed up. So because like I'm saying, like I was in love, like you could talk to my mom, like literally Power Ranger toys every year.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean, for like growing up, like I loved that shit. But like for whatever reason, especially in American football,
Mhm.
there's a culture of, it's I can't put it into words right now, but there wasn't room for like the Pokemon and you could play NCAA
totally.
and Madden all fucking day. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Talk about those kind
Right.
of video games and Call of Duty and Halo and things like that. But like, I'm the guy who played fucking Kingdom Hearts when everybody was into Halo.
It's so
But I was still weird about like I kind of like said it jokingly, like, yeah, I'm into the Kingdom Hearts. I
Yeah,
like
you
that
have
kind
to
of
you have
game.
to like soften it by like.
but that's
making it
the thing. It's so
self-deprecating.
Exactly.
it's so interesting, and maybe this is like a very unique experience because I played on a bunch of different hockey teams growing up, right? And in Toronto, like if you're playing a kind of top hockey, you're playing on like your school team and like another team that's your main team, right? But I remember like I think it's one of those things that comes from people though too, because I had like a few friends and like specifically one of like my really good friends who was like always like very popular, really good at hockey, but like that guy on the team who's like one of the biggest like Pokemon nerds I know, you know what I mean? Like that type of thing. I'll get a message every once in a while being like, yo, did you do like the Pokemon Go thing this weekend or like that type of stuff? You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I think cause like we'd be talking about Pokemon or whatever openly, like no, like that never felt like a thing. But I think that's a thing that probably, relied pretty heavily on like him and people like that in the dressing room.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting, how like different
From my
each situation is.
perspective, Brandon, you said something that I think is so. I'm only a couple years younger than you guys, but for me, it was like you're right in that, like quote unquote nerd
Mm-hmm.
things were sort of popular.
Right.
Like when I was in high school, like Iron Man had just come out. Like, so like the Marvel shit was like fully like starting to take off and like that. And then we all know that it's like the most popular thing in the world now.
Well, it's funny, not really, because Iron Man, I feel was like that risk, right? That was like the first.
Oh yeah.
Was what I mean. But
Start
now
of the-
looking
right,
back,
exactly,
it's like
yeah.
the most important, like famous, whatever thing ever. But there's a difference though between like video games and like comic books and like anime. Like I felt like anime was still looked at as this like weird, and like part of it I think is because it's foreign, and like part of it I think is because it's like has a reputation of being like weird sex shit, which like is both true and also really not true. Like it's just like different understandings of like what it is.
Yeah, it definitely
And,
just
like,
depends on which anime
what
it
you're
is.
watching. But that's what I'm saying. That's why it's a medium. It's not a genre. Like it's not like you can't just be like, oh, it's just one thing. That's like all music is just like one thing. Like, you know what I mean? That's not right. But like it's the same thing, Josh. Like I remember I grew up on Toonami, right? Like every Saturday night I would watch Toonami because it was like fucking that's all I wanted to do. And like just it's all my favorite shows. Like you had like Dragon Ball and like I was big into Naruto and like all those shows. And I remember like when I was in like 8th grade, maybe 7th grade, one of those 2 years, I was like watching and like my dad had like his like work friends or like other dads in the neighborhood. You know how like dads get together? And they all like came down and like saw what I was doing and like all like openly like laughed at me and like ridiculed me. And that like traumatized me for a really long time. And then it's just like, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, like this is something that people just don't get. And like at school, like you can't talk about it. You know what I mean? And like, because it was just seen as this like really weird, bizarre thing. And now that like Netflix has made it cool to watch, it's like on one hand, like I'm glad that it's getting a bigger exposure because genuinely some of my favorite artists of all time are like involved in anime. But also I'm a little bit like, fuck you, because I had to go through all this shit and now people can just be like, yeah, fucking One Piece is the best. And I'm like, God damn it. You gotta pay your dues, man. You gotta fucking go through the shit, man. Like I did, man.
Yeah. Well, I also hung out with older like
Mm-hmm.
people, so like I think that kind of led into me kind of to act older. I kind of put that stuff away, but no, I'm enjoying the resurgence of everything, and like, but it is a daily thing to not judge yourself
Yeah.
Yeah.
for liking something that you might think in the back of your head that you shouldn't like at 30 years old. There are some people who will judge me or will think something because I'm supposed to, whatever, be at some point in my life that they think is necessary at 30 years old. But for me, I'm loving my life. You know what I mean? I'm finally getting footage from different short films and
Nice.
things like that to put together a more cohesive acting reel. I'm getting headshots in a week and a half. Like,
Nice. Who you?
I'm
who you doing
I'm
headshots
very
with?
positive with David Knowles.
This motherfucker is
Dope.
gonna do David Knowles because apparently
Shout out.
he has $3 million to throw away.
Well, I got really lucky
No, I know,
because
I know,
I made
I know,
the
I know.
deposit, and then because of COVID, they had to like reschedule everything, so they took off an additional
Oh, that's
amount.
awesome.
And so I'm only paying, I think total like $1,000.
I mean, also he's
which is only a couple hundred more than my other ones a couple years ago.
He's fantastic. Like that's a no risk situation.
worth
I've
it.
never seen a
Yeah.
David Knowles headshot that wasn't unreal. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
I'm
you
excited to see
definitely
what
get
they
what
look
you
like.
pay
I just
for.
got my hair cut
nice.
yesterday, so I'm
That's
excited
good.
to
Nice. Looking fly.
I'm kind of trying to own the because of the COVID weight and because of my age and things like that, owning the bear next door type,
But I mean, look, especially now, like
Yeah.
castings are going that way all the time, which is great. Like
Love the skin you're in, baby.
it is really cool. Obviously, I'm on all the casting websites every day looking at everything, and it's like it's one of those things where there's even now when like COVID is happening and shit, like with production open in Toronto, you look at all the casting notices and like it's not like there's not opportunities out there for everyone. There's not like there's not still opportunities out there for white dudes, but it's awesome seeing how many everything specifically they're looking for and everyone for different projects, and it's just awesome. You know what I mean? Like there's a significant change looking at it now compared to 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I'm like, I think it's all depends on the mindset that you're in and stuff,
Yeah.
and like we look at that as a positive.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to play everything. I just need to and it's getting used to kind of like what specifically you would go for, and especially now that I've been listening to my voice for the last 6 months, kind of realizing how I sound and like how that actually does. I feel that is also within the package. You know what I mean? Like you look at my body type, and then when I open my mouth, I sound like something different than what people may, think initially. But so that also kind of jumbles up like the type of like the character you'd play.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I feel anyway, in my opinion. Like I'm more of the loyal,
Well,
friend, older brother type
can
of
I
like,
can I say one of the best and you got one of you's not going to agree with me, but one of the best versions of that I've seen was you, Caleb,
which
playing Mozart. And I don't, I don't know if that was like an active choice or whatever, but it was Mozart, right? In Amadeus?
Yeah. Wait. Not gonna agree with you. Wait,
Oh, I don't know, because usually
Sorry.
you're just like super like, no, shit. Because that's, usually.
oh, so when
Yeah,
you
I
said
remember.
one of you may not agree, you were meaning Caleb.
Yeah. 'cause-
I was like, Josh, do you hate like my performance?
no.
I was like ready.
There was probably a better way to
have
do that.
another conversation.
No, but
yeah.
you
Oh, sorry. Yeah. By the way, Josh told me after that you fucking suck.
no. So for the audience, it was what, third year, right? Third year?
Yeah.
So like end of third year,
Final scene work, I think.
Caleb
yeah.
and another friend of ours, Eddie Brents, did a scene from Amadeus, right?
Mhm.
And Caleb's playing Mozart. But one of the most phenomenal performances I've ever seen. But your voice the entire time is, I don't know, like a full register higher than you are usually.
Yeah.
And it was like, it just,
Head voice.
it made the character. It was just one of the best pieces of character work I've ever seen. But that's, when we're talking about it, it's like that. Yeah, like that changes the character so much, the voice,
Yeah.
the intonations, the tone.
He's very the character as written, and there's like discussions and discrepancies and arguments on like to the historical accuracy of the play, and there were definitely liberties taken by Peter Schaffer when he was writing it, but yeah, he's like very infantilized. He's like very immature, and he also Mozart was deaf in one ear.
Right.
So just like those two things, I think you have to kind of like bring it up into like a higher register. But I mean, well, thank you. You're
No,
very
dude, it
kind
was
to say that.
it was great. It was fucking awesome. Wish you guys got to do that full play.
I know. I wanted to. There was no way we could have done it for. Yeah,
Also,
there were,
speaking of voices, Eddie, this guy's got one of the best voices of all time.
we had a lot of people in our cohort. Eddie, Juliet, both have great voices. And then like Moses had a great
Oh,
voice.
yeah.
And then that's not even counting everyone who could like sing.
Definitely.
We know some talented people.
Yeah. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. I got the news, not I did, but like, you guys hear that the Mets closing officially until next year.
No.
Oh no.
No.
Got the news,
Baseball.
and so which kind of sucks for like probably Broadway and stuff like that, where a lot of our friends and people are gonna live theater. It's still a work in progress for sure.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
But on the positive note, starting next season, Porgy and Bess is coming back, so my roommate's very excited for the possibilities for him professionally.
Yeah.
When it does come back, and so I hope that even with all this uncertainty and everything going on, things are getting prepared and trying to put those pieces into place so that when it does hit the ground running, we can all hopefully find success.
Yeah, man.
So,
speaking of Broadway,
about that time.
I was wondering how we were going to transition. I was going to say something about character work.
I was just going to go hard.
should we take just the briefest of breaks? And
Let's take a brief break, and we will come back and start talking about the adventure of
Bruce Willis.
Yeah,
With
Bruce
hair.
Willis's
The
torrid
adventure
love affair and
of
love
Bruce
triangle.
Willis's hair.
of his very prominent hair plugs, which we'll talk about.
All right, guys, refill your coffees. We'll be back to talk about Bruce Willis and his hair plugs.
Oh my god, I hope.
We back?
We're back.
Everybody ready?
I'm ready.
All
Yeah,
right.
sorry, I just had to pee.
No, please. I had to get coffee.
Pee all you
So-
want.
All right, I'm gonna do it right now.
He's literally doing it right now.
Fuck, that's good.
Anyway,
Why is it so yellow?
all right.
Huh?
He's dehydrated,
I'm dehydrated.
which is weird because Caleb drinks water all the time.
It's actually 100 pure vodka.
That would be a huge surprise.
I pivoted. Yeah.
And the coronavirus has been very difficult.
You know what? Fuck it. Not only when I did drink, it was never vodka, so that would have been 180.
So
Like,
huge.
like personality twist. Sorry, Josh.
No, speaking of drinking, Bruce Willis drinks in a movie from 1992 called Death Becomes Her.
Oh my God.
And not only Bruce Willis, but you have Goldie Hawn, Meryl Streep, Isabella... Fuck. All right, let me try that again. Sorry, I got tongue-tied. Isabella Rossellini.
Isabella Rossellini.
Who, by the way, I'm going as for Halloween.
From-
All you need is a curtain and some jewels.
From this?
Well-placed jewels. Yeah, why not?
Well
Please.
placed jewels to cover your tits like rocks.
Death Becomes Her, a cult classic in the gay community. Never saw it, so I was really excited to get this off my list. The real quick synopsis, you have... I would try and sum it up here real quick. You have two women who have a history together who are always trying to competing. One's married to Ernest, Bruce Willis. Then Bruce Willis leaves for, Meryl Streep's character is a Broadway actress or an actress. So he leaves for her, jump 7 years. Goldie Hawn gets depressed and is trying to be revengeful towards Meryl Streep. And then, but both women are, trying to fight aging and stuff like that. So they take a potion that prevents them from aging, but then also twist, they can't die. And so then it's just kind of, and then hilarity ensues, in a nutshell, because I didn't think about this before this recording. So that was just kind of off the cusp and I probably did a terrible job. I'm sorry to all my friends listening if I completely bastardized the synopsis of Death Becomes Her, directed by Robert Zemeckis, who we mentioned a couple weeks ago
Got that
in
little shout out.
the Charlie Kaufman
I'm
movie.
thinking of ending things, yeah.
So it was fun to watch this movie. What'd you guys think of it?
So I had never heard of it before. So when last week, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, as per usual, like Wednesday night, sometimes I get off work and then I'm like, oh fuck, what are we watching? And then I go back and listen to the end of the last podcast. And then I'm like, all right, cool. And then I look it up. So when at the end of the last podcast, you had said it was like a, big cult hit in the LGBTQ community. So I expected it to be an LGBTQ movie. And then when I pulled it up and I was like, Meryl Streep and Bruce Willis. Oh, I get it. It's like super campy and stuff. Okay, cool. But I went into it thinking it was like a dramatic, like, you know what I mean? Like emotional piece.
Okay. No.
Do you mean that you didn't find it to be like a powerful piece of dramatic storytelling, Brandon?
Look, I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? It was a nice change up too of the stuff that
definitely
that we've been watching, and like they don't make shit like this anymore. You know what I mean? Like
that's okay.
It's like, but like the campiness of it was fun. You know, all of them very much on purpose, theatrically overacting. You know, would have been more annoying had it been anyone else other than the three of them, who are great. You know, it's just like.
No, I agree with you in that it's fun. Like, it's campy and like, Josh and I were talking a little bit before we hopped on the recording, and I think it's crazy because like, so Meryl Streep specifically, like particularly, is known for, I think, her like powerful dramatic turns, like where she wins the Oscars all the time. And I think like that's like definitely like she's amazing, but she's also so funny. Yeah. Like, she was hilarious in this movie. She had me dying all the time as Madeline Ashton. Like, even in like the first opening when we open on like the Broadway show on what is very clearly not actually New York. Like, did that bother you guys? It was like, I don't know if it was CG or whatever, but it was like, this is like a fake.
There's definitely like a noir type of like design artist.
What's happening?
That's
and then
what
you
it
have all
felt
the
like.
people like, oh, she's fucking terrible. She's fucking awful. Like, they're walking out of the thing, which is just so like, she can't even be bad, like, to pretend.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like it's obviously supposed to be like a dumb musical, and like, like with like the dancing and like the boys, like the backup dancers singing. It was like, okay, this is like a bad, but like she was great, and I was agreed with Bruce. Like, everybody was like, oh, this is awful, but you pan to Bruce in the theater being like, she's marvelous. Like, it's just like, she's just so wonderful, and Bruce Willis playing against type too. Like,
I really enjoyed him a lot.
He was fucking funny.
Hilarious. And like, but that's the thing I wanted to say about Meryl Streep, right? You can't, for us, I guess, even more so, because like we just grew up with her being Meryl Streep, like you said. Like, she's the best actor. You know what I mean? Like, arguably, she's the best. You know what I mean? Like, she's definitely one of the best. Yeah, but like, if you look at like on paper, right? Mm-hmm. Like, number of nominations, wins, all of that, arguably, she's the best. If you wanted to go by that, right? It's so interesting, though, that when she does something like this or anything really, she's so good that she does it, and you're like, that's Meryl Streep, but your mind shifts to like, it's Meryl Streep, but it's this Meryl Streep. You know?
I was actually, for them being as recognizable as actors, like I feel like I'll believe them as their characters.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't get away from the fact
I wasn't distracted.
Yeah,
about that it was Bruce, that or that it was
good.
Meryl.
That even though really you're like, that's Meryl Streep the whole time, it's, you know what I mean? It's still totally believable. Yeah. That's how ridiculously good she is.
And it's also, it reminds me, like, because I don't know, it's like kind of like the Oscars don't, like, I know that it's like they don't really mean anything. It's not like, oh, this is actually like a math. It's not like the best, like whatever. But it's like, oh, she gets nominated every time she does anything. It's like annoying. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. But then like, I'm like, fuck, like I get it though, because she's always great. Like, she's always great. And just, I think, I don't know if she's the best, but I feel like she's probably the most consistent.
Yeah.
Like the most consistently
I think
great.
That's what I was going to kind of chime in real quick in terms of, yeah, she's always nominated, whatever. But I think it's always like, I think she picks her roles well. I think she knows what she can do, but
like
also,
Mamma Mia.
Or that wasn't there this movie that she did where she was a bad like the character
Florence
was a bad
Foster Jenkins. Yeah, she was like a rich woman who wanted to be an opera singer, but like can't sing.
Yeah,
right.
Which is funny. Which is okay. Like, for somebody, like, you don't always have to, like, I think it's totally okay to have your time to like play, Julia Child, or you could play Mamma Mia.
Oh, right. Yeah, she's been everybody.
And
too.
It's like, because but when you see her, especially in this movie, I feel like she's just having fun and she just enjoys the craft, or like acting, right?
Yeah, she's an actress.
So especially in this movie in the early 90s.
Oh, it's so 90s.
And it's so 90s, and it's so Brain, I guess I'll go right into your comment about the gay cult classic. And
Yeah. So what's
watching
the
movie
connection?
now twice? Yeah. So the connection is, as gay men, we're very vain. Some of us are, but
Nice save.
in a nice generalized term. Like if you look at like RuPaul's Drag Race, if you look at these queens or these people like in the gay bars that I've worked at, watching the clientele come through, a lot of them are very, very judgmental of other people. It's all about looks, all about how muscular you are, or like whatever, who has the biggest ass. You know what I mean? So like in that sense, when you have two characters who are essentially drag queens themselves, in terms of how they act and how they're just about the looks, stuff like that, and how they're about the bosom and the young boy, the pool boy, the other house.
Yo, he was just mean.
But they're
Just like unnecessarily like
you
rude.
didn't have to be
How
that
dare you? You
mean.
don't know what I'm. You don't know. You don't care about my feelings. People think we look ridiculous together.
How do you think that makes me feel,
Yeah.
Madeline? That's a part that Billy Magnuson would play today. That's the equivalent. You guys are like, who the
Sure.
fuck are you talking about? Sorry, never mind. Anyway,
But to go on, but it's inspired a lot of drag queens. They do a lot of events. I think it's how bitchy they are to each other.
Right.
Like I always told friends that like if I didn't make fun of you, then I didn't like you. I just wouldn't talk to you if I didn't like you. So like there's that kind of culture in the gay community of like we always kind of throw a little shade. It's always it's for fun, right? And even because this is so campy and so like over the top, it's very fun to kind of make fun of it and like like sitting in the car when they're driving and she just goes, "Could you just not breathe?"
Yeah. Oh my god.
Like what a really bitchy comment to say, but it's so funny because like you totally would say that to like somebody who's like breathing hard or snoring, like because just how gay men tend to treat each other is a very friendly kind of banter, like shade throwing type of
Right.
thing. And so growing up, I'm sure people like watch this movie and was like, yes, I love this. And they try and emulate that.
positive.
And
role
that's,
models.
that's kind of, and like the the outfits were great. The red dress on Goldie, to fucking Isabella's every of
Oh
her
my God.
costumes. I'm
I
sure
was-
Yeah.
a drag queen has used the white coat. That was just the
that coat, baby.
or like it's the jewels over the breasts and the red curtain. It's the having Tom, Dick, and Harry as henchmen who are in these like Fabio
I was gonna
O'Hare
ask about
styles
that.
and these Dobermans,
And
like it's very gay. It's very gay.
they're dressed like
that whole mansion
They're
is
dressed
gay.
like they stepped right out of Rocky Horror Picture Show. Those
Yeah.
three, you
Right,
know.
and so that's what I was telling
Yeah.
Caleb. I was like, this feels a lot like Rocky
Right,
Horror,
yes.
where you can just kind of have fun
Yeah,
with
it definitely has that feel.
And also Beetlejuice in terms of tone
Yeah.
and humor.
Yeah.
Very Beetlejuice, in
Very
my opinion. Because
Beetlejuice.
Ryan and I just watched it again, actually, I think on HBO. Beetlejuice was on, or AMC or something. I don't remember.
It's a great movie.
Thought they were making
Yeah,
a new
and
one.
it's so great. Like even down to just the thunderstorm and her crying in the car and looking at herself and then having to halt the car, stop the car, and then she's just drenched in wet and or dressed in the rain, and like her like the whole transformation, right? You get like the breasts and the butt,
Yeah, that was
and then
fantastic.
you get she turns around and I'm a girl. Like I guarantee you, every drag queen has said that line in character at some point during one of their shows, in history. Well, after the movie was made,
Yeah.
So it's like it's things like that kind of, and it's the whole like fighting for eternal beauty. Like how many men do I see that have gotten the Botox? Just like they're so obsessive about maintaining a youthful body that it's of course like this movie. That's all this movie's about. This movie's about trying to fight that natural aging process. If you were to, and then obviously you have Bruce Willis's character who's just like, well, who actually asks the questions like, well, why would I want? What if I get lonely? What if I do this? Well, I'll watch everybody. I don't want to do
He was
this.
so funny, man.
And it's like, it's funny. Yeah.
He was so funny.
Now, I feel like there are many people that could probably explain this better than
I definitely
but
get it.
that's the best correlation that I can.
No, I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like you've hit the heart of, I think, what resonates.
Even that correlation between like it and like Rocky Horror Picture Show, you can really feel like it makes sense. Like I get it, like why that would be a cult classic in the LGBTQ excuse me, LGBTQ community. Yeah, no, I was just interested because I went into this movie like before I looked it up, thinking that it was like
thinking it was like Call Me by Your Name.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was like a really important LGBTQ movie.
Another comedy.
Well, in a sense, it is important. It's part of the canon of like young gays coming up, and like you always have your like your mother, so to speak, who has this list of DVDs that you must watch, including what's the one with oh god.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
He's going to lose gay points
Oh
now.
god, no, my points are, I can just see them.
I can see them leaving.
I can see them leaving. It's the three guys dressed up as drag queens.
To Wong Fu. Thanks for everything.
Yeah, To Wong Fu.
Julie Newmar.
Yep. Dude, so it was super fun. I enjoyed it. But what you know what kept really getting me and surprised me about the movie, and is one of those things that I think probably puts it in that category and makes it a good movie? The writing. They kept getting me on the twists and shit. I was like, all right.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I thought Goldie Hawn was dead for sure. Spoiler alert.
I figured.
Can I answer that actually?
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
I was like,
if you look at the movie poster, the movie poster is Meryl Streep with her head turned on backwards.
Oh, okay.
It's
so this was
Goldie Hawn with a hole in her stomach with the candles and Bruce Willis in the middle. So I saw the poster and I was like, oh, wait,
okay.
yeah, no, that kind of tells everything right away.
But even more than, but there was, it just they kept switching it up, which I liked. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Then
like I definitely
they turn on Bruce Willis. They, want him to become immortal so he can keep fixing it. It was just like, oh, this is.
Yeah.
It was better written than it looked like it was gonna be story-wise,
There were aspects of the writing that I thought were surprisingly good, but I didn't feel like it was like so a small thing that I really liked is I liked how they, and I don't know if this was written or it was directed this way, but I liked how like they would talk over each other, like characters would talk over each other a bunch, like how like real people talk. It's like I understand like when you're making a movie, like that's not, you want the lines and that's not just how you pace your things, but I always appreciate it when people actually like talk like real people and like they're not on the same wavelength and they're bickering and like there's lots of overlap of information. I thought that was a nice touch, but I have no idea if that was how it was written or if that was Zemeckis' directorial choice. But I was impressed for like a good, honestly, like the first act especially, but then like even the middle, they move along like at a pretty fast clip.
Yeah.
Like this movie's only an hour 40.
Yeah.
And they get a lot of information in there really immediately. Like it starts at the show and then like backstage. And then they're like, the first time I actually laughed was when Goldie Hawn's like, she's done this before. I know she's going to steal you away. And he's like, I'm not in love with Madeline Ashton. Hard cut to like them at the altar and like walk. It's like, okay. And then it's like 7 years later.
That,
like how
even
like 7 years later
that
again.
cracked me up.
And it's like, that's what I'm saying. So it like moves along and then like, I feel like at some point though, and we can like get into the details and everything. I feel like the movie, like most of the movie was like set up. And then when almost like an hour and 15 minutes in, it's like, oh, this is the movie now is finally starting where like both of the women have then it's revealed they've both drank the potion and they kind of make up. And then it's like, now we have to get like Bruce Willis to agree to fix us up forever. And then it's like they go to the castle and it's this whole thing. Like I wasn't a fan of like the ending. Like I feel like the last 20 minutes was kind of boring and it was like really long and sort of ended on a weird note.
Yeah, the funeral scene was on.
For me. Because they have like the writing is like it's a cool idea and they spend a lot of like time like getting to like the idea. But then like there's like almost a half hour left of the movie by the time the women make up. And I feel like that should have been the end. Like the resolution to the climax, I was just like, oh, it's like there's still so much more boring shit I don't care about left.
Yeah. But what I did like, what I thought the coolest part of the movie was when they're at the castle and you see all the people who are alive and have faked their deaths. Like that was a great concept.
Annoying.
I liked it.
I mean, it definitely was a little bit gratuitous.
The James Dean one
Can
was
I say
the best
that
one.
gratuitous?
The Elvis. I was like,
Elvis,
shut up.
Marilyn Monroe, James Dean.
Yeah,
James Dean, of course, he turns exactly and looks exactly like every poster you see of James
That was
Dean.
the best one.
I
You
liked
know,
it.
they definitely-
I liked it when they implied it.
Yeah.
Like when Isabella is trying to get Meryl to do it and she does the Greta Garbo impression and Meryl's like, her? Like that's what they should have left it at. I think just actually like seeing like the people
Yeah.
dress up and like do the impressions.
Kinda
I'm like,
takes away
this
from
is like
the-
annoying. Like I liked it better when it was a mystique, when it was like, oh, like what is this cult? Like what is like sometimes it's better to leave things to the imagination, I think. Because then it's like, who is this person? Like, is she like a gypsy? Is she a witch? Like, what's actually going on? Like, I liked that Isabella's character was mysterious for a while, but then it turns out.
Right.
that
What are you
it's
guys'
just,
thoughts? Like, is she like a devil character? But the potion is like in like an Egyptian symbol kind of.
I
like,
don't
what do
even
you
think they know. I think it's
Okay.
just I think it's the potion of youth that somehow got made.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah,
they sell
I also
it
like
to these
have a
rich
bigger
people.
issue with that in that like they're freaking out trying to get the potion back from him, right? And like it's the only one. And I'm like, there's a whole
Well, that's the thing is
room
we
of
don't know.
people.
We have no
No,
context
but we do
for like
know.
Well,
what
no,
it
We
they
is.
know
wanted-
because we watched Marilyn chug the whole bottle, so there has to be a shit ton more of it.
But I'm saying like I'm saying they never established like
Right,
what
no,
it
that's what I
is,
mean.
and like if it's a finite and like so like
Yeah.
But as we talk
I
about
don't
it,
know.
I think it's got. I'm just
Well, remember
It seems like it's the
that
fountain
they
of youth,
wanted
right?
him to drink it so that they
So
wanted
that-
him to drink it so that he can keep touching them up with spray
Yeah,
paint, things
yeah.
like that.
So when he drops it, it's like, oh, he's gonna die because he's gonna fall. But
Yeah,
then
'cause
he
he's
crashes
falling.
through the glass, the stained glass
course.
into the water, which is like how that works. Like you can just be totally fine as you climb out of the water. And then these two people are like fucking, and they're like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
It's just so
Yeah,
like,
but-
weird.
What did your
the twist is that Bruce Willis was alive the whole time.
I see what he did. Did you see what he did, Josh?
Oh, you mean the dichotomy of the women versus Bruce Willis?
And he made a Sixth Sense joke. And he's
Oh.
very proud of himself. You
I don't-
can't see
I
because we're not
enjoyed it.
recording the video, but he's very proud of himself.
Honestly,
Well, at first I was like, it took me a second. I was like, what are you fucking idiot? Of course he was alive the whole time. But then I was like,
I've only seen that one 30-second clip
of
of
Sixth
the
Sense.
of Sixth Sense.
Yeah,
it's a good movie.
but it's hard to watch now. Once you know that everybody
Kind
knows.
of like Shawshank or like The Shining. Like it's been saturated into our.
But but
consciousness.
Shawshank still surprised me. Not like it just Shawshank. And same with The Shining. They were just still both like, oh my god, everything's so fucking interesting
Sure.
and how it's shot and shit. You know?
I wanted to shout out to the special effects. They did win the Academy Award that year for best visual effects.
what year was this?
Some of them were
Um,
pretty bad. We're talking about
We're
Death
talking
Becomes
about
Her again.
yeah, Death
Yeah,
Becomes Her. Yeah,
And I know that was like I know it was like 30 years ago,
But-
92. But I was like, because that was a selling point. I remember like reading up
Yeah.
about it. It was like the special effects were like for the time really good. But I don't know, like it's like especially Meryl's neck, like everything looked really fake, and
Yeah.
like a lot of the fast moving CGI stuff. And you think about like Jurassic Park came out 2 years later, right? And it's still incredible. Like I feel like it's not really. They weren't really.
well, I
that
think
good.
there's a difference between like having like animatronic kind of like dinosaurs and also having like what I would assume is a contortionist like on the floor slowly getting up
That was
out
awesome.
of the crumpled heap
That was
of the
amazing.
body.
Well, that's like in
You
the
know.
background, but like
Right.
I'm talking about the shit like of her in the foreground of like the dangling, like
Right, but then like but you have to realize that like it's the things like with the hole in the stomach and her stupid. This is so stupid. Her throwing the fucking
Yeah.
shovel handle through the hole into the couch and then Goldie Hawn sitting into it. Like you can definitely see how it's fake, but back on standard TVs or movie whatever back in the day, like with how film was, I feel like that would have been like, oh shit, cool, man.
yeah, like okay,
You know.
yeah,
Also,
like back in the day, I'm sure. it
what
looked
was
great, but
seemingly
like,
the practical stuff was what looked the best. Like when she falls down the stairs for the first time when he pushes her, and she like breaks
that
in-
was the hardest I laughed for the
Right?
whole movie.
Like-
how long was that staircase?
The unending
and I don't know if that was a dummy or a stunt person or what, but it was unbelievable.
that was it. That
It
wasn't.
must
That
have been a
definitely
dummy.
dumb.
But how
Yeah.
many
They
times
didn't
do you have
push
to?
Meryl
But
down
I was
the
watching.
staircase.
I was watching that, being like, how many times do you have to throw a dummy down a staircase for it to work that well? You know what I mean? Like how many times
Also,
do you have
like
to do that?
what core strength?
It was
Right, to be able to like be on the teetering edge
Oh
in
my
her
God.
heels.
No.
and like it's one of those things that I
definitely
knew
on
like,
wires
it's-
because it's like a minute and a half.
Yeah, obviously, but I'm talking about the character. Like with her new abs that she just got.
And they bring that back at the end too, which is funny.
Well, that's another, I wasn't necessarily surprised, Brandon. Like, there's like lots of little moments. I'm like, oh, this is going to happen. Like, I knew that he was going to push her after she insults him. Like, that's just what was going to happen. And then she's like, you dummy. And then his face drops. He's like, you know what? Fuck this bitch. And it's like funny, but I don't think it was like, I wasn't impressed. I feel like the way you were saying you were. Like, I knew that, like,
but I'm much easier.
Obviously, Goldie
impressed
Hawn
than
had
you.
drank the potion. Like, obviously, they were both going to, like, do that. Like, I did like how, and then they just don't do it doesn't go anywhere. Like, they don't do anything interesting with, like, Isabella Rossellini. They don't do anything interesting with, like, that doctor who I guess was also in on it. The one, like, giving her card. Like, it's just, like, I don't know.
No, but, like, what was that place? Because, like, so the scene, like, she goes in, I don't know if it's some sort of blood work or some sort of Botox type of.
It's like a blood transfusion.
It's like, because, and then you see, like, there's that reveal of, like, the mirror of the guy in the wheel. That's, like, whatever.
Yep.
And then you have, that's where you get the quote, like, tits like rocks or whatever, the 22-year-old skin. But the guy, when you talk about character, right, like, kind of campy, whatever, it's like the guy with the eyelid, right? Like, him being able to, like, wink like that.
Oh.
For whatever reason, like, I'm like, I fucking laughed.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Bad Botox.
And just kind of the mannerisms and, like, the way he kind of, his character is, it's very, it's funny, and, and then it's being able to watch Meryl Streep run around the room frantic because she needs to look beautiful. And she's like, what do you think? Well, I'm going to wash myself with, like, water, soap and water. Like, and she's, like checking herself out.
Does she say,
and
like, a poor person? Or, like, what does she say?
I don't know off the top of my head. But it's like, makeup doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And so it is funny. There's one of the other moments I'm glad because there's multiple instances where they bring things back, right? So it's like, for instance, when at the very beginning at the Broadway show, they say, oh, your friend Helen is here or whatever. And she's like, okay. And she has to, like, get herself ready and she has to, like, practice the reaction, right? We've all been there where we're like, obviously we're not, like, surprised, but, like, where you practice kind of what you're going to say. We're actors, whatever. So she's going through, and then she has to do it, right? But then you have Goldie Hawn, who's, like, doing the air in the eyes and, like, I need to speak to Madeline. Okay. Because it's all vain. It's all surface. It's all, it's not, they're not trying to, this movie is not something to, like, for deep character-driven work. It's Bruce Willis frantic because he doesn't want to get arrested. And my favorite line in the entire movie is Meryl Streep going, do you know what they do to soft, bald, overweight Republicans in jail? And then he goes crazy and he needs to, like, bury the body or whatever.
Yeah, it was definitely, I liked the when Goldie Hawn is, like, telling him the murder plan, like how they shot
she
that.
drank a little bit too much as they cut through
like so many bottles in the fucking and then her fucking in the morgue, the burned crisp thing with the
but even that, I was watching that scene,
just another drunk
and I was
driver.
like, oh, this makes sense for a lot of reasons. Like, you kind of need to shoot this to put some of those shots in the trailer to not make, you know what I mean? Like, I would be surprised if they didn't use, like, a lot of those shots very blatantly, with, like, her and Bruce Willis on top of the burning car as, like, a red herring type of thing.
Yeah, I haven't seen the trailer for this movie, so I don't know.
You haven't seen any trailers ever.
You saw the Dune trailer.
That's true.
But no, I definitely I appreciate the fact that they were, I would say, in my opinion, consistent in terms of, like, it was a campy movie, it was ridiculous, and it kind of minus towards the end where the funeral scene was kind of like, I mean, we've all cackled. I know but I think that was more for the reveal of like their work compared to his work in terms of the spray paint.
And they fell down another goddamn staircase.
Right, and then they busted into pieces.
It was absurd the amount of shots of Meryl Streep falling downstairs were in this movie. Like, I don't think that you can say that about any other movie.
It was awesome.
No, I think in that, and I feel like that is where it gets its place.
I felt a little like, I don't know. I know it's the 90s, and I'm not trying to be like the PC police or anything, but I was like, the whole, like, Goldie Hawn in a fat suit, and, like, then, like, immediately to, like, all the mental health patients. I was like, oh, come on. It's very dated in those ways.
Yeah, but
and I was like, this is kind of
the best way to put it.
not that I'm like sitting here like, oh, I am so offended, but like I'm also like, oh, like this is, you don't probably need to do it this way, and like
Right.
you can like avoid doing
Yeah,
this anymore. There's a
it's
reason
like-
that this shit doesn't happen.
Like it's like
anymore.
you're not remaking Shallow Hal. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
God.
that's like and
Why not?
like it's just
I want a remake. I want a gritty, dark reboot of Shallow Hal, where like he gets like a really bad brain injury, and then he's like in the wheelchair, but then like
Well,
this like
hold on. Before we get too distracted, do we want to talk about that episode of Community? And if so, do we want to figure that out?
I want the whole PC thing.
Oh, I guess we can if you guys want to. Josh and I like talked about it a little bit already.
I think. Okay, so quick tangent for the listener. Sorry, it's a big 180.
Or do you want to have that be the end?
Well, that's
Do you
what
guys
I was
have
saying.
anything
I mean,
else?
if we wanted to talk about the movie and then go
Let's
into
finish
that,
talking
or-
about the movie.
Yeah, let's finish talking about Death Becomes Her,
Yeah.
because I don't think we need to go into a huge conversation about it, but I would like to make a comment on it.
Yeah, I'm not even going to comment on it in the. I mean, I might say something about the fact that it got pulled, but I just want to talk about the episode in general.
Yeah. So, but real quick, kind of to like finish, I mean, there are definitely some things that we can pull from it that are funny, like having Goldie Hawn being evicted from her apartment while watching a death scene, like Meryl Streep's character in a movie on TV, like that was humorous to me.
Yeah.
It's this idea that she's piling.
Well,
fucking-
the idea that she's so obsessed with getting revenge on this person that as she's getting evicted from her home,
Right.
she's like rewinding the tape is funny.
Yeah.
The fact that she's just like fat is like not funny.
Of course not. No.
Like in the way that I'm like, I didn't make me laugh. Like that shot of her
Right.
like bending over and then she's back up in the fat suit. Like that's supposed to be funny. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, it's just, she just ate a lot. She's just like fat.
I think it's funny though because in the 90s, like it's a pretty bad fat suit too.
Yeah.
Like we've seen fat suits like
Churchill.
Like in Norbit.
God, Norbit.
Churchill.
But Churchill, like there's some good effects that you can make somebody look heavier. But even it's that vein, it's that shallowness, it's that the only thing that's important to these women are their appearances. And
that is true.
in Meryl Streep's eyes, knowing that she's as heavy as she is, that's a win for Meryl Streep's character because she gets little tickets to her book signing or whatever, and she goes, "Oh, Forever Young, what a nice title, ha ha," and eternally fat, because that's the kind of shit that like
Yeah.
gay men unfortunately will say about each other. Like,
Unfortunately.
It is definitely
yeah.
part
You know
of
what
the
I mean?
plot and story too. It is like because it is all about how vain.
No, I know it's
they
rooted
are,
in
yeah.
character.
because you
like,
get that
they're
great
all-
reveal of
They're all
her
vain,
coming.
but then it's like, okay, so it's like, why is this movie popular? And you say that it's like popular in the gay community, and it's just these like women like being criticized and
Just mean to
hypercritical
each
of
other,
each
yeah.
other's bodies, calling each other a bitch the whole time.
Yep.
I'm like, it's pretty misogynistic.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's kind of like worth mentioning because like, I think that like there's stuff to appreciate about it for sure, but I was like kind of shocked, like, wow, they really like they treat these women pretty horribly. And I know that they're like bad people. And they have like they're like but they're like the resolution to their conflict of their like redeeming traits is like it was just like a huge misunderstanding. And like they were both like really mean to each other as
yeah, that
kids.
wasn't the yeah.
And then it's like, oh, but then they're like, fine. And then like, they're like, now we got to go get Bruce Willis to do what we want. And he's just like, he might as well have looked to the camera and been like, women are crazy, right? It's just like, oh, okay. It just wasn't as interesting as I was hoping it or
No.
like nuanced as I feel like it could have been. You know what I mean?
Well, and then
and it was also written by two men. So it's like, okay.
yeah. So I mean, all that you have to obviously take all that context into, it's the same. I think it's funny with these things that are considered cult classics or for certain communities, like they're very important films. It's kind of like the Tu Wong Fu is a three straight men dressing in drag, giving light to this like community when they have zero experience as the actual characters, right? But that was also
White chicks.
I think late 80s white chicks.
What's wrong with
Nothing.
White
I'm just saying it's another
My
example
favorite
of
movie.
men dressing in drag for a
we
movie.
can it's like we need to also we need to take the reality of the situation of the context and realize yeah cool, but then also what does that take? And I can see kind of because of the mentality, because of the characteristics of the people involved in the movie, I guess characters, that's really redundant, but I don't think anybody is arguing, just to be a counterpoint kind of a thing, is nobody's arguing like it's not misogynistic. I'm sure people will sit down if they critically think about this movie. They're like, oh yeah,
but it's also
okay.
it's not serious. That's the other side of it, right?
It's not serious. You watch it, you can chuckle a little bit, and then you can go on with your life.
Exactly. It's not misogynistic for misogynistic purposes. It's misogynistic because the women are being overly comedic and dramatic on, purpose thematically. So
it's like misogyny is cool if it's a joke.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Caleb. All right. Fun way to wrap up that conversation. Appreciate it.
Isn't that what you just said in a sense?
No, it's not what I said.
Well, then I guess I misunderstood your comment. Cause like when you say I'm not saying like that I think that that's what you think at all, but I'm saying like, it's like, I hear what you guys are saying, but it did like kind of strike me like, watching this movie, I was like, oh, it is sort of like making me a little not uncomfortable, but I was just like, oh, this is like some of the things that they wanted me to laugh at. I was like, I don't really think that's that funny. And then like, for all of the things that we were talking about, how like the positive qualities of it, I don't think it's enough for me to be like, to ignore these other aspects of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, but we also view things in a very different lens 28 years later. You know what I mean? We can't not help look at through.
Well, that's my point, I guess. I feel like, especially now, if you went out and made something like that, it would be very fair to question, what the fuck are you doing? Why, first of all, why is it being written by two men? Like whatever you want to question about it.
Yeah.
Back then, that's what I mean, I guess, by the fact that it's not, I don't think Robert Zemeckis or anybody sitting there writing this being like, yeah, there's going to have some sweet undertones of misogyny. It's like, oh, how do we want to make these two characters funny? They're the leads. They're shitting on Bruce Willis the whole time. Bruce
Willis is like the spineless male who gets essentially just abused by the women the whole time. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and then he, in a way comes out on top in the end, which is like sort of a weird, like very like male fantasy almost.
And you see
like
the
nebbish, like,
but the women still are there to like cackle at him, and just judge him.
I'm just saying, like, I don't think that. Like I agree, Brandon. Like, it's definitely different if that movie was going to be made today, but I don't think that like. You mean the intentionality aside, like whether or not it was like a purposeful or lack of a thing, it's still indicative of the state of the industry at the time.
Yeah,
and in a lot of ways, it's still the state of the industry today.
100%.
Like, it hasn't gone away. And I think I just was saying, I think it's worth pointing out. I don't think that like time context is like always an excuse to like write things off. That's all I was saying.
No, but and I totally get that. But I guess the other side of that is then like, how do you write this? I guess that's what I'm saying.
I don't think you had to.
Well, okay, fair enough.
It's not something that needs
I guess
to
that's what I'm saying.
Is,
with the story the way it is about these two women who are very vain on, like, that's what it's all about. I don't know how it.
I think a bigger exploration into the culture and what led them to have these ideas in the first place. An examination of the Hollywood system and how it pits women against each other and how it sort of like promotes this idea of vanity. And I think like if you actually had like a critical examination of that, you can have these characters come to a sort of realization and be like, oh, actually the way we've been living our lives in our relationship is like
as opposed to the realization that, hey, maybe I shouldn't be immortal. Yeah, I got you. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I think there is a way to do it.
That would have been a different movie.
That's the movie you make now.
That's the movie you make.
That's the movie you make now.
Back in '92, you make, and I keep mentioning the time and I know we can't not think about whatever the time. It's not an excuse, but it's like, but it is the context. Just like the context is that it was it's very misogynistic at the time, even though it was, it's all relative. So, at the time, people thought that was funny, so they made the movie, and it,
some people think it's funny today. I'm sure.
We thought it was funny sometimes.
I thought it was funny.
I think that other aspects of it were funny.
Yeah,
I'm saying there's like physical comedy and there's like good performances, but all this other shit.
That being said, should we rank it? Because we're running about an hour 10 already.
Yep. Let's rank.
Let's do it.
Let's rank, and then we can real quick go into, because it actually goes into the whole joke thing. I will go first. I'm gonna give it. You got your phone open?
Yeah, I got it.
I'm gonna give it a 3.5.
Seems fair.
I liked it better than Dune. I thought it was solid as a dark comedy.
Better than Dune, Josh Stir. That's the review.
I'm gonna give it a 3. I enjoyed it. It was a nice change up. It just, you know what I mean? It like, yeah, it is what it is. It was fun. It was enjoyable. You know, it totally worked for me. Everybody's awesome in it. The 3 of them are fantastic and super fun. But yeah, it's, you know, just is what it is.
Yeah, I give it a 3 as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So real quick, before we go into my suggestions, and now I know what I want to pick.
Oh my god!
So
Can't wait.
Okay, so real quick, we did mention at the beginning of the episode that we did, Caleb and we all 3 now have seen a specific episode of the show Community. It's a Dungeons and Dragons episode.
Yeah, I just want to say the reason I originally brought this up was not really having anything to do with the, you know, fact that it's been taken down because of blackface or anything like that. That's like one pretty quick thing at the beginning. And so just to explain, to get through that, this episode is the Dungeons and Dragons episode of Community. It's been pulled off of everything. Because at the beginning, Chang is dressed up as a dark elf to play Dungeons and Dragons, and he has like white silver hair, but he's also in like dark, like black paint, and so there's obviously a blackface concern. I think it seems very much that the only reason that was in the show is because Shirley immediately makes a joke that is like, "Are we just gonna ignore that blackface or that
hate
crime?"
crime?
And so they pulled the episode, and I get that. To a certain degree, I understand, you know, you want to be, it's NBC, you know, they own the show. I get it. You know, they went across the board pulling everything. Do I wish they had just painted him blue or green or anything else? Yes. You know, it doesn't. And so that it is what it is. The episode itself, though, I think is a really important episode. And that's why I brought it up.
In what way?
Well, I just thought it's a really well done episode. I think that, I mean, it's the first time that I ever saw Dungeons and Dragons in anything, and that I thought that was very cool and made me want to play Dungeons and Dragons. But also, just as the show's going on, it's one of the first times really that it tries to hit a different emotional level. You know, you have all the Fat Neil stuff, and obviously there's all the other stuff sprinkled in. But you know, it's an episode about a kid who's going to commit suicide. You know, and a bunch of people trying to show him that there's other things and there's people that care about him and stuff.
I think it's funny because like I didn't explicitly get suicide from it. I just get like a picked on kid who is very, very, very depressed, and obviously suicide is definitely a conclusion that one can come to.
Well, when he gives, what's his name, the main guy,
Jeff.
When he gives Jeff the books, and he's like, I don't need them anymore. That's like a thing that when people who attempt suicide do, they give people their belongings. So I think that was pretty explicitly.
All right. Well, then maybe I missed it.
Yeah.
So, that the episode, I do enjoy the episode. I love because it's halfway through season 2, and it's a little over halfway. Yeah. And each episode in this is it's unique kind of capsule of an episode. Like the genre is very epic, fantasy, Lord of the Rings type of stuff. The whole blackface thing, I understand the editing of it, taking it out. But because it is such a short time and it's very obvious if you do just do some sort of research on Dungeons and Dragons, it was just their attempt to kind of whatever. And they do make fun of it. So they do. The thing is like with satire and like what I feel like when we talk about being, you know, the PC aspect of it versus the actually addressing certain things, if they didn't say anything, like the characters didn't say amongst themselves, like Shirley didn't mention it, you know, I think that would have been an issue. But like they also address it. So I feel like it takes away from the severity of it, because it's not like it's a Halloween. It's not like it's a.
Also, though, like to be clear, like that's not blackface.
Like he's dressed like, as a dark elf. Like he's not. Yeah,
is a really blackface is like an actual thing that is like minstrel shows. Like when like actors would like act like make themselves up to look like slaves, like African Americans or just Africans, like black people, like to with the express intent of like ridiculing them and like making fun of them.
And
like that's what.
to be very
blackface
clear,
is.
super
So, like-
fucked up and not cool, and don't fucking do that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I'm not
100%.
defending. blackface.
You're just
I'm
explaining
saying-
where it came from. I'm just adding that in
I'm
there so it's
saying
very
that
clear
I'm
to
saying that
everyone.
having your fucking character put himself into like black tar, like with it, like that's not what blackface is. So
Yeah.
like I feel like for NBC to like preemptively, I don't think anyone was complaining about it unless I didn't read those reports, but they just like pulled it because it's like, oh, we don't want anyone to say anything.
It's like a
It's like a
preventative
preemptive
measure
thing,
kind
and
of
it's
thing.
like, yeah, but that's not what people are fucking upset
Right.
about.
because you have
Like,
like in my
hire
opinion,
more like black artists and creators and showrunners and actors and writers, and like, you know, stop like innocently like murdering people. In
well,
the
it's
street.
like
that's they don't care about this fucking person dressing up like an elf on TV. Like they don't. No one gives a shit. So I
Yeah.
found the whole thing to be really dumb.
I
But,
find it.
you know,
I find
whatever,
it.
It's just me.
I told Caleb. I said that Pierce says a lot more abusive and offensive. things
Yeah,
I
about
mean,
the
that's
character.
the thing,
It's like,
right?
How is this all right? But like, you know, through the whole show, like the sense of humor,
Yeah.
like what we were saying, like you have people like saying all this horrible shit, but it's like, oh, like we don't want, you know,
Well,
it's just it's like they can't, they have their fingers on the wrong pulse. Like they're not
they,
like actually
they
paying
always
attention to
do.
what's
They
going
always
on.
do. First of all, but that's what I wanted
They
to.
always do what?
The you know, people at the top, they always have their finger kind of on the wrong pulse. It's kind of, you know, how it seems to happen. But
Yeah.
just with that episode, even talking about, you know, Pierce and all of that, just some of, and that's really why I wanted to bring it up. It's just one of my favorite episodes. Just some of the best bits ever. Like Alison Brie's character when she's doing the whole like explanation of the sex scene and it's all muted out and it's just her doing like actions and scenes and like Donald Glover's like taking notes. Like it's just some
Yeah.
of the fucking best bits. It just kills me.
One of the bits, you know, she's like, and then I cuddle for just the
Right.
a spoon just for the right amount of time, and he's like, how long is that? You know.
And exactly how
So
long is
yeah,
that?
it's a clever episode. It's unfortunate that we get caught up in this kind of the political aspects of it. You know, when it's just a commentary, when they do address it, and there are things. You know, it's like you can't pick and choose as much as you think you can. I guess in terms of editing, because I guess it's the same episode, but you know the whole like the fantasy character that you know was supposed to be for Troy was well endowed.
So
You know what I
funny.
mean? Like it's so anyway. So yeah. So I'm glad we've all seen it. We can all get the reference now, and it's unfortunate. It's a good episode.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that
But-
it's just I just think as an episode, it's just really well directed, well written, well acted, you know, and then obviously
It was directed by
Russo
the Russo.
brothers, I think, yeah,
so
yeah,
one of them.
They were already in season 2. They were already directing stuff.
yeah. That's what they were doing. I think they did most of Community season 2 as maybe they were producing. I can't remember. They were there though.
They were both. They're kind of interchanged.
Yeah.
Cool. So to wrap this up quick, next week it's my turn again, and so I thought it would be interesting to do a podcast over just to objectively criticize bad movie, right? You know, like all these movies that we do, we kind of it's up in the air, like what's bad, what's good, whatever. So the Hottie and the Naughty.
The fuck is that?
Paris Hilton, 2008. Paris Hilton's in it. It's on Amazon, and it's one of the top 10 worst movies of all time.
Wow,
so
you
I feel
went
like that would be
hard.
It's like a Paris Hilton movie. You haven't heard of it, Brandon?
No, I have not. I'm looking it up right now.
The Hottie and the
Who
Naughty.
Hottie
else
and the
is in
Naughty.
this movie?
I have
don't
no
think
idea.
anyone's
It's going to be an
super
offensive
famous.
movie. It's not going to be funny. It's going to be bad. But I would be interested for us to pick apart a movie like this.
Okay, that's what we're doing, I guess. You know what's actually what is very interesting and kind of I keep seeing those fucking ads for her documentary on YouTube. Have you seen that at all? But it's some documentary about her and being like I've been living this character in the public eye for this many years. I don't know how to get out of it. And interviews with her mom being like, yeah, it's fucking weird. I don't know why she talks like that. Like, she's super fucking smart and has always been super fucking smart. And so who knows if that's true or bullshit or whatever, but that might be an interesting thing to watch going into this movie. So I might do that.
Yeah.
But
try and do some research, or I'll do some things.
Have you guys seen her other famous film, One Night in Paris?
No, I have not.
No comment.
I knew it, you
All right.
motherfucker.
Guys, as always, thanks for listening, and thank you too for a great conversation.
Yeah. This is a
about
good-
Bruce
this is a good
Willis and his
one.
hair plugs. All right, real quick though, isn't it
Okay.
funny how like the symbol of old age is like liver spots and veins? Did you guys notice that? That's how they
They did it with their
did
hands, yeah.
the difference.
On their
they,
hands,
they have
yeah.
the same hands. Anyway, so yeah, thanks for listening. We're 3MFA.
Why is that shot? Like, that's what happens when you get older.
Yeah.
Why are you like?
But Bruce Willis and Meryl Streep at 50 years old, they all have the same hand.
yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
The longer you're married to someone, the more you start to look like them.
I thought that was your pet.
Oh shit.
Sorry, 3M Affairs podcast. You can find us on YouTube and all the major podcast outlets. Our episode Dune is now out, the 1984 version, so check that out, along with everything else. And next week, it'll be Paris Hilton, and not the movie y'all think. It's The Hottie and the Naughty.
You can watch that one too if you want.
It's called Research, Caleb.
Yeah, I just need to get into the mind of this young woman.
House of Wax. That was also a movie that Paris Hilton was in.
Oh, wow. No, I actually like
Another
that.
movie starring her that I jerked off.
God damn it, Caleb. I was trying to get away from that.
All right, bye.
On that note, catch you guys next week.
Another movie starring her where she gets covered.
One
in
night in
sticky
the
wax.
House of Wax. All right.
All right,
Foreign Affairs Podcast.
Where she gets fucking plastered in the face by hot, sticky white liquid. All right, see you guys later.
See you guys later. Bye.